Hello, my name is Emma, and today we are going to learn about two really important prepositions. We're going to learn about the word by and the word with. Many learners confuse these two words, but they're very important in English. We use them all the time. So today I'm going to tell you what are the differences between by and with, and when do we use them. So let's first start with the word by, B-Y. So we use it in different situations. The first one I'm going to talk about is when we use it with time. When we're talking about time, we can use by with the time. So for example, arrive by 4 p.m. So what does this mean if you see by here? What that means is you want to arrive before or at 4 p.m., not after. So no later than 4 p.m. So we use this a lot. Somebody might say, I'll arrive by 6 p.m. This means they're going to get there before 6 p.m. or right at 6 p.m. Here's another example. I will be there 7 p.m. So we can write in the word by. I will be there by 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. is the latest. I might be a little bit earlier. Here's another example. Imagine you're at work. You are going to send an email to somebody. You can say, I will send you the email by 6 p.m. This means the person will get the email at 6 p.m. or before 6 p.m. So again, we use by with time very frequently to mean before or at a certain time. Let's look at some other ways we use the word by. So by can also be used to answer the question of who. Who did something? So let me show you. Romeo and Juliet is a very famous play or story. Who wrote it? Romeo and Juliet was written by Shakespeare. So in this, we want to know who did it. Shakespeare did it. So we can write by. You'll notice by is often used with what we call the passive voice or the passive tense. So that is where we have the be verb, and then we have our main verb like written. We have many videos actually on the passive tense if you don't know it. But the main point here is that when you're using the passive voice or the passive tense, we often use by, and by is used to say who did something. Let's look at another example. Imagine somebody says, who built the pyramids? The pyramids were built by the Egyptians, not aliens, as some people might think. So the pyramids were built by the ancient Egyptians. Okay, here's another question. So again, we want to know who ate the cake? The cake was eaten by the dog. So again, this is where the answer to who is. Who did it? The dog. Who did it? The Egyptians. Who did it? Shakespeare. So I want you to try to do the next one. What's the name of the latest song, Taylor Swift? What do you think goes here? Okay, if you said by, you're correct. So we use by when we're saying who did something. It answers this question. The album was by the Beatles. The song was by Taylor Swift. The painting was by Picasso. Another important way we use the word by is we use it to talk about methods. How are we doing something? So I'll give you some examples of this. We can use it with nouns, especially when we're talking about transportation. So the method of how you're going somewhere. For example, I'm going to Japan by train, or I'm going to Australia by plane. I am going home by foot. So you can use, when you're talking about transportation, you can use by and then the mode of transportation. We also use by a lot when we're talking about communication, the method of communication. So we use it a lot with the word email, by email, by phone, by chat. So when you're talking about communication and ways to communicate, you might use by. Here's an example. I'll send it, how? By email. I mentioned transportation. Here's an example for transportation. How did you go to school? I went to school by bus every day. Okay, so again, by in this case is answering how, specifically the method. What's the method? We can also use by with a verb if it has ing on it. So I'll give you a great example that you might want to use. By, we have our verb learn, and then we have ing. By learning English, you can have more opportunity. So that's an example. We can use by in other examples too. So anytime you're thinking about a process, for example, maybe by exercising more, you can stay healthier. By getting more sleep, you can have an easier workday. So we often use by to talk about processes or methods. And again, if you use it with a verb, make sure that the verb ends in ing. Okay, so we've talked about ways we use by, and we'll come back to this in a moment. But now let's look at with. We use with in different ways. One of the ways we use with is to talk about accompaniment. So what do I mean by that? I mean together. Who is together? I have a picture. Imagine this is you. These are the people. When you're together, we can say you are with these people. That's what I mean by accompaniment. It's who is together. So here's an example. Imagine you want to talk about a place you went to. Someone might say, who went? Who did you go with? I went with my friends. This means together. So you, your friends, together went somewhere. That's how we use with, to explain who we did something together with. Here's another example. I spent time with who? With my family. I went to Australia with who? With my aunt. So with can answer the question of who accompanied you or who was together. So that's the first way we can use with. Let's look at some other ways to use with. We can use with to describe a person by saying what they have or possess. So let's look at some examples. You see this man? Imagine I see him in the street and I want to tell somebody about this man. I could call him the man with the red hat. The man with the red hat likes to go to the restaurant, for example. So I'm describing this man using something he has or possesses, in this case, a red hat, and I'm using with. Let's look at another example. Imagine I see this boy. He has blue hair, and I want to tell someone something about him. I can describe him by using with. The boy, what is interesting about this boy? Well, the boy with the blue hair, as soon as I say that, people know I'm talking about this one. The boy with the blue hair came to the park. Let's look at another example. You might not understand what this is. This is a dog. This is a woman. I'm sorry for my bad drawing, but I can say, which woman? Oh, the woman with the dog. So the woman who has the dog. The woman with the dog likes my friend. So again, we can use with when we're describing people and we're describing something interesting about them or something they possess or have. Okay, so another way to use with is to talk about objects or tools. So we can use it to describe how we do something with a tool or an object. Let me show you some examples. Imagine somebody breaks a window. You might wonder, how? How did they break the window? With what tool or what object? He broke the window with a rock. So that's an example. What was the object? It was a rock. He broke the window. How? With a rock. So anytime you're talking about tools or objects and you're trying to explain how, you can use with. Here's another example. This is very important to me. You might see a giant diamond. It's not. It's fake. I wish it was a real diamond, but it's not. But this is a pen. It's actually my lucky pen. So whenever I need to do work or tests or something important, I use this lucky pen. So how can I use this? Well, this is the object. Someone might say, how did you write the test? I did the test with my lucky pen. Do you have a lucky object you might use when you're doing tests? If you do, you can use this word with. Okay, here's another example. When I was a kid, I could not figure out how to open a coconut. For people in other countries, you might eat coconuts all the time. But for me, I never ate coconut when I was a kid. So the first time I wanted to eat a coconut, I didn't know how to open it. And I wondered, what object do I use to open a coconut? Do you use a knife? Do you use a rock? Do you use a machete? What tool or object do you use to open a coconut? So I know in a lot of places, they might use a machete. I opened a coconut. How? With what tool? With a machete. So here's another example on how to use the word with. So we use with objects and with tools to explain how we do something. All right, well, let's now summarize the key differences between by and with. So we've talked a lot about by, we've talked a lot about with. What are the main differences? Well, by focuses on who did something. So for example, the song was by Elvis. He did the song. We use by to focus on a method used. So for example, how something was done. Here's an example. I went by bus. Bus was the transportation method. How did you communicate? We communicated by text. So it tells you how something was done. With focuses on a tool or an object. How did she write the letter? She wrote the letter with a pen. So a pen is a tool or an object. We also use with when we're talking about who was together, accompanying somebody. So who was together? Who went to the park together? The girl went with her brother. I went with my friends. So these are the main differences. Practice makes perfect. So what I would recommend is coming to our website at www.engvid.com, where you can actually take a quiz to practice the differences between by and with. Practice is very important, and it's the best way to remember these ideas. So thank you so much for watching today. If you're interested, you can subscribe to my channel. I have many videos on grammar, language learning, vocabulary, and so much more. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.